What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about a film that was just released on VOD. And to be quite honest, I didn't know much about this movie. I read a couple of reviews beforehand, but I saw it as available for rental on Amazon Prime. And I read the description and it sounded super interesting. And I didn't watch a trailer beforehand, went in completely blind. And I'm excited to tell you about this movie today. And the film I'm going to be discussing with you is Faceless After Dark. Faceless After Dark is directed by Raymond Wood. Following her breakout role in a killer clown horror flick, Bowie now finds herself struggling to capitalize on its success. But when she is suddenly held hostage by an unhinged fan posing as that same killer clown, horror becomes her reality as she fights to survive the night and escape before he completes his sinister plan to recreate the film's fatal plot. So, I was very excited to watch this movie solely based on the description without watching a trailer, and this movie was really great. It took me by surprise. I thought the performances were really solid here. I really liked the visual style and a lot of the color choices in the movie, and it really subverts your expectations. By reading the plot description, you really think the movie is going to go in one direction, but it goes an entirely other direction that I wasn't expecting. And despite it being just a really fantastic psychological horror film, it's also an incredibly poignant social commentary, and I did not expect it to go in that direction, but I'm really excited to talk about it with you today. So at the beginning of the film, we are introduced to Bowie, played by Jenna Cannell, and what I find really interesting about this movie is Jenna Cannell starred in the film Terrifier. So she was in a horror film centered around a killer clown. So a lot of, and I believe she wrote on this movie as well. So it's really interesting seeing the parallels here, and it'll be fun to talk about that later. But she was in this killer clown film, and it's really the only movie in her career that has brought her any kind of success. And we see her go to these conventions and she's signing things and talking to people, but she can't seem to find her next role as hard as she's trying. And we see her go home after one of these conventions and we meet her girlfriend, who is this incredibly successful actress that just keeps getting great role after great role. And she's about to leave out of the country to shoot a film for a while. And she looks at Bowie and tells her, like, hey, take this time on your own to just try to like find a job or work on one of your own creative projects just to get something going. And throughout that time, we see her interactions with some creeps online and some weird things that happen to her. And as the plot description states, someone breaks into her house in a clown mask. And the entire film kind of kicks off at that point and goes into a direction that I do not think you would expect. So as I said, I really liked this movie a lot. I didn't know what to expect from it, and obviously going in blind, I think, made it even better of an experience. But for starters, I do want to talk about the performances. I think Jenna Cannell's performance as Bowie in this movie is fantastic. She has to do quite a bit in this film, as far as like her emotional range and like going from really low lows to really high highs, and a lot of it is through her facial expressions, and it's really incredible some of the moments where she just turns on this really like high level emotionality that can be chaotic and intense and really captivate your attention. And I was really impressed with her performance in this movie. And I think what's so interesting is obviously her being credited, I believe, as a writer on the film and working on Terrifier and probably doing a lot of these conventions and being surrounded by these people. There was so much poignant social commentary laden throughout the film, just as her experience as a woman in the industry and being a queer character in this film, and what is like false expectations that people have on celebrities, especially women, and like the pressure of disgusting men to like, just because you exist, they feel like they deserve something from you. And a lot of these conversations, like I read a couple of reviews, people are like, oh, this was cringe and they took it too far. But it's like, this is honestly the reality of the situation. Like, people are gross and people overstep their bounds and they do things that they really should not do. And I think the movie captures that perfectly, as like, this is a person who has chosen acting as a career and wants to make something of that career and has become successful in this very specific niche market. As a horror fan, it's a very niche market, and some of the fan bases can be really weird and have these very strange expectations of you as a person, and they often boil you down to this one thing because you've existed in this one role, but you're a human being. You're much more complex than that. And I think the movie does a great job showcasing that. And I didn't expect that from just a movie that I assumed was like a run of the mill, fun, kind of like subversive slasher movie. I really enjoyed a lot of the cinematographical choices in this. There's some really cool, very surreal shot sequences. There were some moments that just you don't typically see in a modern day horror film, that they'll like the cinematographer will focus on one specific frame. The character had like a dance number at one point. There's this really great sequence where the camera is just holding on this, I don't want to give it away, but holding on this one very specific shot that really just kind of got under my skin, and I was very impressed with it. And I think that the visual style really accompanies the chaotic nature of the film, especially when you start to settle in where our character's mindset is at. And that's something that I really appreciated a lot. And like I said, the poignant social commentary was really what took me by surprise. And it's not necessarily just the pressures on this person when it comes to, wanting to be a successful actor, not necessarily getting the gigs that you want, but there's also just like the pressures of the world, and how like we live in a country right now where there are a lot of problems, and there's a lot of terrible people that run our country and that have run our country, and we see these terrible things on top of terrible things. We read news articles, we see all these different things, and like that on top of like just existing as a human being, and especially existing as a woman, and like the pressures put on you, and then existing as a queer person, and putting all of those things on top of one another. And I think that some directors might not be able to handle juggling that amount of subject matter, but this director seems to do a really great job at delicately balancing all of those things and showcasing them to you as a viewer in a way that really works, and that sat with me in a way that was very uncomfortable, and like made me feel a lot for this character just thinking about that. And what makes it so interesting is the direction that the film goes. And I don't want to talk about that in great detail, because it's very surprising and it's very subversive, and I really liked it a lot. It took a very different direction, and once it gets going in that direction, the character's motivations, they kind of turn it on your head as like normally you would view this thing in one way, but because of the things that she's experienced and because of the issues that have happened in her life, you view it in an entirely different perspective. And I loved that. It was one of those very much good for her type of movies, and I love those kind of movies. They're some of my favorite films of all time, if you can't tell from my Possession t-shirt. I love those type of movies, and this was just a really fun experience. And while I don't think the movie is perfect, there are some little things I could pick and choose, but being an independent film that clearly had a very unique vision, that has a very personal touch to it because of the lead actress's personal experiences, it makes for a very unique watch. And I would highly recommend supporting this movie. It's You can rent it on Prime Video. It's totally worth the watch. It is super unique, and I think no matter who you are, you can pull something away from this movie and enjoy it. So, have you seen Faceless After Dark? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was really awesome. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought the performances were great. It really took me by surprise where the film went, and I think no matter who you are, if you watch this movie, you'll find something to enjoy in it. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.